Hey, so over at Zion Lab, which is our online community for Zion builders, for leaders in the church, where it's an open forum to come and bring your questions, your perspectives, your best practices, and let's come together as Zion and share what's working for one another. Don't just wait for the next podcast to come out and hope that I find the guest that's going to maybe have some perspective that's going to be helpful. Let's come together right now in Zion Lab and share some perspective. And one thing we do in Zion Lab are some live streams. We'll take a certain topic, a certain calling, a certain experience, and we'll get in the room remotely and talk about it. So I wanted to share a portion of a live stream that we did for all bishops' wives. Now, of course, Bishopric wives were invited, and really anybody was invited to tune in, but it was amazing to just hear these women share their experience, the best practices, what's working. And so if you have a special bishop's wife in your life, I would strongly encourage you to copy the episode link and send it in a text to them and let them know that others might be struggling with something similar, or others have found some ways to make the experience better, or just sharing best practices like that. And one of the common things that come out, especially near the end, is this feeling of loneliness at times that they feel as the bishop's wife, with so many responsibilities, so many demands. You know, some of them are trying to raise a family still, and now their husband has this really demanding role, and they feel forgotten and they don't know what to do. And so hearing them share and support one another is fantastic. And this actually led, after I got done with this live stream, I realized we need a special spot in Zion Lab just for Bishopric wives. And so we created that. So if you're interested in being part of that, if you're a Bishopric wife, of course, we'd love to include you in that. So here is a portion of the live stream we did about bishops' wives. I want to just open it up. Does anybody have a specific question, a thought that you want to start with? If you want to raise your hand and unmute, and then we'll hear from you. So, all right, Jenny, go ahead.
All right. So my husband's been bishop about 3 years, and we've been doing what I'm going to say for about a year. My husband noticed that sacrament meeting planning was something he had just completely delegated to his counselors. It was nothing that he had anything to do with. And he was realizing, I think he listened to some podcast. Maybe it was a Leading Saints podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know who else talks about this
sacrament
stuff.
Meeting. And so he's like, I want to be more involved, but I just can't put anything on my plate. And I said, well, I can help. And so what we've done for the last year, and we do it a quarter at a time, is we meet together, the entire bishopric and the wives and our music coordinator. And we plan out 3 months of sacrament meeting, the themes, the topics, things like that. The counselors are still reaching out and asking people to speak, but we've also, then we have 4 more people besides the bishopric coming up with ideas. And I know in the handbook it says the ward council is supposed to plan sacrament meeting, but the ward council was like, we can't handle it either. Can you guys try? So we did it for 3 months, and then they loved the results. And so we continue to do it with the ward council's blessing. So it's not like we're stepping on toes there. Anyway, it's just been a blessing to feel like we're more involved and coming up with ideas. We've had some great sacrament meetings over the last year. So
I love that idea. Yeah, simple ideas we could share like that. And I'm curious, Jenny, for you, like you mentioned, it's just been helpful to be more involved. I mean, you've sort of felt a role in this, because I mean, being a bishop is more of a family calling than an individual calling, right? Anything more to say to that? Just your involvement, or what it's felt like for you, or how it's strengthened you, or?
Well, just because I've been behind the scenes of planning, I've been on a personal level, excited, grinning, showing up to sacrament meeting each week, because I know what's going on. And I'm just so excited to see our plans come to fruition. And it's just, we rarely have the one youth speaker, one adult speaker, musical number speaker. That's gone. We haven't done that for almost a year, maybe twice in the last year format. So every Sunday is kind of new and exciting. And it's kind of, now our congregation has really come to expect something fun. So we just have, it's really helped me find a lot of joy in going to church.
And I imagine a lot of the planning or meeting on that is happening outside of Sunday, or Is it?
Yeah, we normally meet on a Sunday night once a quarter.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, that's great. So it's, I mean, what's your family dynamic? Do you have young kids that you're getting to church, or?
So I don't have, no, we're empty nesters, so
Okay.
that's helpful. But the other
Yeah.
two counselors have a lot of young kids, so we normally meet at one of their houses after the kids have gone to bed on a Sunday night.
Great. Love that. Love that. Yeah. And is it Laufate? He says, I don't want to be involved in any more areas, because that might be the case too, right? It's like you want involvement, but maybe some wives are like, oh man, I don't have another minute to give to the experience, right? But I love the idea. I'm glad you shared it. Any other ideas, best practices, questions, struggles? Victoria, go ahead.
I have a question for Jenny. Then what does your sacrament meeting look like? It sounds like there's not a typical one, but just
Right. So we have had question and answer sessions, and what that means, like we'll have 8 to 10 speakers, and they'll speak for about 2 minutes each on a question, and we'll start from 8 years old all the way up to 70 years old. And then we'll have a musical number or two that's on the topic. Like one of the questions is, how do you feel the Savior's love? And so a primary child will answer with, like, I felt it the other day, tell a story when someone was mean to me, but instead I decided to be nice and share my mechanical pencil with them. And that's how I felt the Savior's love that day. And then we'll have a musical number about, I feel my Savior's love, or something like that. So there's a theme like that. We have had my husband asked people and said, in 3 weeks, I want, for the next 3 weeks, I want you to think about why do you believe? And write a 90-second talk answering that question. And then in 3 weeks, we're just going to have an open mic, basically. And not a fasten testimony meeting, because it's like a prescribed, like, answering this question. And so people just came up, and we had we ran out of time of people sharing why they believed. So things like that.
That is great. Wow.
That's cool. I'm curious out there, is there, when you talk about involvement, like, Jenny shares this experience where she does kind of feel a place, a role in this experience. Are there people out there that are seeking more of that, or are struggling to find that? Or are there people that, bishops' wives or individual or families who kind of feel too involved, or it's like kind of encroaching too much on their life, and they struggle navigating that? Any thoughts? Heather, go ahead.
I don't know if it's exactly on topic, but I think that something that, and I'm pretty self-aware as an individual, but as the wife of one of the bishopric counselors, I feel like I'm constantly aware of and sharing with my husband things that I think the congregation might be observing. Like, I'm on the stand texting things like, you're mumbling, you need to speak directly into the mic, or
Love it. Yeah.
you have a grouchy face and you need to look more happy and pleasant up there. And I think it's part of what comes with the calling, is this hyper awareness of what other people are thinking. And they also feel, it might just be my ward, but a lot of people come to me and my husband to share their feelings or ideas when they don't have confidence to go directly to the bishop themselves. Like, I think we may have too many speakers in conference, and they'll say it to me hoping that maybe that message gets, or not conference, in sacrament meeting, and hoping that it gets directly to the right people. But I don't know if that's a common experience that others feel, just that hyper awareness of where people feel like things could improve, and a somewhat responsibility that you have to share to help make sure voices are heard, that maybe that's the way they're choosing to share. Or maybe it's just an experience for me and it isn't common.
Any thoughts or perspective on that anybody wants to share? Erica, go ahead.
I'm a wife of a bishop, and it's about 2.5 years now. And at the very beginning, I had a lot of people that would come to me and would mention things like, "Oh, I'd like to be in this calling," or "I'd like to do this," or just things to improve on. And I would be like, "Well, you should go let the bishop know." And I had to start doing that to protect my relationship with my husband, because pretty soon it just is overcome with talking about church constantly and callings. And it's not my place to, I think, relay those messages all the time, maybe sometimes, but I think it just became important that people, if they have an issue, that they need to go to the bishop, or else just keep it to themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point, that maybe there's a boundary needs to be in place there, or else to get too, like, suddenly you're the back door to getting a message to the bishop, which isn't a healthy dynamic for sure.
Absolutely.
On the one side, it's, I think, I think, was it Heather, somebody was saying just that, just being that observer, like being able to sort of take in that data, and then maybe leads to a conversation that's helpful to help the bishop be more self-aware. But any other thoughts around that or elsewhere? See, Victoria, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I have people, if they can't reach my husband, like he's at work, just during regular work hours, they call me to find out where he is. I'm like, well, he's at work. Or if they think, well, I thought he'd be with you. No, it's still 2:00 on a Sunday. He's still at church. Oh, yeah. It's like, and frankly, honestly, sometimes even if he's not, yeah, I let him still be at work. I let him still be at church because he needs a break. They get so worn out, and there's not necessarily so many, but there are definitely things they cannot and should not share with us. And those are things that are usually pretty heavy on their heart, but they can't talk to us, the person that they talk to about most everything. And I know sometimes on my husband, that's hard. The first time that happened, he came in and he just had this dazed look on his face. And I could tell he had, so to speak, been through something. And he's like, I can't tell you one thing about it. You know what I mean? He wanted to talk. He needed to talk to someone, but he's just like, I cannot tell you anything. And I said, well, then let's just be together. And that's how we went forward. But I think people sometimes almost see us a little bit too much as one person, in that way of, well, where is he? Well, can I? And it's like, no, I'll put up walls if I need to protect my husband in those ways. He's, all of our husbands are available enough. They really, really are. And most of the time, I don't know about any of you, but every time I have had someone trying to run him down to the earth, it really was not important or even time sensitive. It was just something they were feeling a whole lot about and really wanted to get taken care of. It wasn't urgent in any real way. They wanted to check it off their list. And I hate doing that. I hate having personal boundaries, and now I have to have them for him. And then they turn into this entity. He's not just your husband. He's not someone at church. He's the bishop. And there's all these expectations. And that's been weird to see that shift in people to where he's become this third person, this entity, rather than the person who has been living in this ward since 2008 that people have known, had dinner with, played games with, but now he's bishop. That's been weird.
Yeah.
We were kind of warned about it. We kind of figured that would happen. We would see it, especially when he was already counselor and things shifted a little. But, we have friends, some he's known since high school, who are like, so are you bishop calling or are you Bob calling? And I understand what they're saying, which way do we need to go with this? And that's fine. And they always refer to him as bishop anyway. But it also kind of hurts too, that he's not, why can't he be both? Why does there have to be a separation? He's just a guy filling a calling, just like they are,
Yeah. I think that's really a helpful perspective for especially new families called into this role, to understand that these are the things to talk through and expect, and how are we going to navigate that. And I appreciate your framing of that, of, they become an entity, whether that's the bishop entity or which is part of, it includes the family. That's really helpful, really helpful. Anybody else have a thought as how you navigate similar dynamics, or go ahead. Are you Zachary?
I'm Sharada. My husband is home today, but
okay, No problem.
I feel protective of his time a little bit, and we're just in this about over a year, and I always am telling him to delegate more. We have 4 kids, and we're really really busy, and I'm just curious if you guys have ideas on how to do that. I mean, some things, they are the only person that can do it, but I feel that there is a lot that can kind of be delegated. Or I'm just wondering, one friend told us wait 24 hours before replying to things, which my husband has never done. But and also that they're also in charge of the young men's, program kind of now too. Is that comes with it too, and there's so much involvement there. So I don't know. I mean, I guess because we're at a very busy point in our life right now that it feels like a lot. So I'm just wondering if there's ways that other people have found to kind of work through that.
Yeah, great question. Anybody want to share? Erica, go ahead.
My husband was told about the wait 24 hours to respond. And at first he wasn't doing that. And then it was too much, because nowadays everyone has access to Bishop, cell phone number, texting constantly. Like, he gets home from work and it was like he needs another hour just to respond to all the messages on his phone. And it got to the point that it was too much. And so he started doing that. He would wait 24 hours to respond, and most everything worked itself out, and then he wouldn't need to address anything. So I highly recommend the wait 24 hours. It frees up a lot of mental space.
Great advice. Marlene, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, my husband has all jobs are busy, right? But he has a position where he does like marketing for a hospital system, but he's very accessible to people at work, but then he's also very accessible to people at church. And he's had where people have gotten offended if he doesn't answer them right away, but he might be on a deadline at work that has to take priority. That's his job. He could lose his job if he doesn't, handle things. But I was just going to mention, as far as our situation is, we're empty nesters, which is great, but very busy in his calling because he's a YSA bishop. So we went through 5 years of family ward bishop, and then he had an 18-month break doing other callings, and then he was YSA bishop. So altogether, we've done 7 years of bishoping. Still got another year left, hopefully. That just, because in theory, YSA is 3 years instead of 5. But when he was put in as YSA bishop, we had gone to dinner with the previous bishop and wife. And I had asked the question, what's the difference between a family ward bishop and a YSA, ward bishop? And he says, well, a Chihuahua and a Great Dane are both dogs. So obviously there's differences, but, there's some things that are the same. But we're kind of in the stage of life that, even though we're empty nesters, so we're not having little children that we're having to worry about, for when he was family ward bishop, his mom was a widow and was very needy, and he was her comfort zone, and so there was some times that there was animosity, or not animosity, more resentment of the time that he was spending bishoping when it was taken away from her. And his mom has now passed away, and my parents have both passed away, and his dad has passed away, but we still have elderly family members, which is an aunt and uncle that never had children. And so we're kind of the ones that take care of them. And so there's always going to be times that we're needed for our family outside of church. And sometimes that's just a tricky thing to try to navigate. And just a real quick thing as well is just, the saying mama bear. I've kind of joked and said I'm a wifey bear, that I have a hard time when people are critical of my husband, or that they just don't seem to understand the challenges that we're facing. And when he was released from family ward bishop, coincidentally, the neighbors across the street, and we're in Southern California, so we don't always have LDS neighbors, but he ended up becoming the bishop. And I told them, I said, I'm going to be your number one cheerleader because I know how hard it is, So it's just trying to hit that happy medium of doing our best in our callings, or to help build the kingdom, but also not neglect our family members.
Thank you. Jody.
One thing that we had a member of our ward that was contacting my husband very frequently about things that, in my opinion, did not have to be handled by the bishop. It was something that definitely the elders' quorum or a ministering brother should be more involved in. And I expressed my concern to my husband, and just a little bit of background, this is our second time of him serving as bishop. We are empty nesters now, but anyway, but that doesn't really matter, except that we've learned a whole lot and are smarter this time. So I expressed my concern to my husband and said, why don't you maybe let his ministering brother know a little bit what's going on and see if you can hand this off. And so he did. He contacted the ministering brother and said, so-and-so has contacted me with this particular issue. Would you be willing to reach out to him? And he said, you bet, I'm on it, Bishop. So then my husband texted this brother back and said, I've contacted your ministering brother and he'll be getting in touch with you. And it was a wonderful way for my husband to train this man that legitimately has need. I mean, he has needs. And so it wasn't something that didn't need addressed, but it didn't need to be done by my husband. And by handing it off in that graceful way, instead of just telling him, contact your ministering brother, my husband did it for him and then passed it off. And it's worked really well.
Thank you, Jody. Fawn, go ahead.
We're brand new. My husband just got called 2 months ago, and just trying to figure out, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? Is there something I'm supposed to be doing, or is it just supporting him? I mean, and that's not a just, but is that, I don't know. I've just been trying to figure out what my role is in all this.
Any thoughts there? Victoria, go ahead.
I don't know if you were told this by the stake presidency, but when my husband was set apart, nothing. Okay, we were told, first of all, for him to give me a blessing. And I would really highly, strongly suggest that you have that done. That gave me some direction on where to go, where to focus, what to do with some of my strengths, what to do about some of my weaknesses. Because this does feel like a calling, even though it isn't. Yeah. It really does. And that helped me quite a bit, because just like it gave me something to work with, somewhere to look at, something to start with. And then we were told, of course, about keeping the priorities, which you've probably heard that part of his relationship with Heavenly Father, his relationship with human family, employment, and then the calling.
Mm-hmm. I did get that one.
Yeah, we may know that, but a lot of the ward members don't. They just don't. We're here in the South. They are used to paid preachers who are accessible for anything and everything 24/7. They really don't like that our bishops have jobs. Mm-hmm. And one sister even said that, I just really wish you didn't have a job. And she was the one that will call and say, well, where is he? Literally will ask me where he is. Like, well, he's of course with patients. He's at work. But the 24-hour thing, that was something my husband had seen as a counselor. And I would wholeheartedly recommend that. Wholeheartedly.
Because I am seeing a lot of text messages and calls. And
yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we get in ourself, right? And we're having our moment. And so we reach out to someone who feels safe and we feel we can help us. And that can be our bishop, right? Good, great. But that doesn't make it an emergency, And quite often, and especially at 2 a.m, that's not okay. And as that time goes on, we handle it on our own. We really do. And we come out of it. And if you had even made an appointment at that point, by morning comes, you're ready to cancel that appointment because you've handled it. Even if you didn't call him, even if you just made an appointment, usually by then you've kind of worked yourself through it. And that has been such a help. And besides that, what your job is, you've got to be inspired on what you need, your ward need, your family needs. I'm very happy. Our previous bishop, I always had lunch with her. We meet a few times a year. And so I picked her brain when we knew this was coming. But at the same time, we are very different people, very different. And her husband and mine are very different. And so it helped, but in some ways it didn't feel like applicable at the same time, if you know what I mean, because we were so very different. I noticed one person saying, you're his fourth counselor. Our stake president said, actually, I'm the first counselor. And then he has his first counselor. And then he has his, well, he doesn't have a second counselor. He only has one counselor. He only has. But don't gossip because people think you know stuff. That's one thing I found out too. If somebody's just, sometimes we chat about callings. We're just chatting. Just like people talk about the weather. Well, we're LDS. We chat about callings sometimes, right? People think you know something when you're bishop's wife. I am very careful about what I say now because people think I know something. Or like the other sister said, I have input in something, which if I do or I don't, I'm not going to let anybody know. That's not to be known. But I would really, really say get that blessing, and that'll probably answer most of your questions right there. I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's great. Alvina, did you have something?
I was going to reiterate the blessing, getting a blessing from your husband. I actually got one from the stake president. He pulled me aside and said that if I needed anything, to call him, because sometimes my husband has to have his bishop hat on and he can't put his husband hat on in that moment. So he is make sure that your stake president is available to you. And this last week has been an interesting Sunday. My husband announced that we have realigned our ward boundaries. We've picked up 60 new families, and we already had a very high needs ward, and now we have about 40 more. So it's going to be an interesting week. And just watching his phone blow up in the last 4 days has been extremely interesting, especially with the work and trying to organize the reorganization of the ward. And so it's been kind of crazy. And just remember that Heavenly Father is always there for you. Your stake president's there, and to just spend a lot of time on your knees. I know that sounds trite, but it helps, because as Emma Smith was told that her greatest calling was to be in support of her husband. And I know I lose sight of that sometimes, especially when I feel like my needs aren't being met, that there are other people there for you if it can't be your husband in that moment. And I'm so grateful for this. Thank you for holding this eye on lamps. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah. Jenny, do you have something to share?
I was just going to comment a little bit on the previous question about delegating. And hopefully everyone else will agree with this. I think the key thing is that you have a good Elders Quorum president and Relief Society president, and that they understand their callings and that they truly are over the adults of the ward and the bishop is not. And when they feel empowered to take on those roles and be proactive in their callings, that removes a lot of the burden off the husband. And then the husband, the bishopric, can focus more on the youth, which is their new priority. I will say also that, we live in Gilbert, Arizona, so we're like Utah light. So we have a lot of people that are willing to help. And so we have what he's done with the young men, so that he's not just like all of a sudden he's not the young men's presidency. They're just helping to run the youth. They're supposed to be over the youth, not just the young men. And so he has just called multiple advisors for every single priesthood quorum, so that he and his counselors do not have to be present. There's at least 2 other men in every single quorum that are there, and they're the ones that are like planning the meetings and getting, training, helping the youth teach the lessons and doing the day-to-day things. And so that alleviates the bishopric to show up and be present and be there and totally be there and not be behind the scenes running the activities and planning all the stuff like that. So those are just my 2 bits of advice for delegating from a previous question.
Thank you. Marlene, did you have something to share?
I guess this is just for fun about being brand new and stuff, is that the thing that I thought about when my husband was called for the first time as a family ward bishop is I thought, how am I supposed to follow the previous ward's, bishop's wife? I mean, she was a scriptorian. She taught seminary and she made gourmet desserts for bishop's firesides. How am I supposed to follow that? And it's like, at the time, I'm retired now just because I've had some health problems, long COVID, all that junk. But back then I was working full time. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Costco and buy a bunch of cupcakes because sugar is sugar. And this is the way the new bishop's wife rolls, because I'm not going to make a gourmet dessert for this, our first bishop's fireside. And it's almost kind of like the Lord has called you and your husband because he knows your talents for what is needed now. And to not be intimidated by, that, just to trust that that's what the ward needs from you now, because that's, the Lord's in charge. It's interesting just coming from the perspective of having, I know I meant to talk before, but of both a family ward and YSA ward, is like for the first year and a half, we were the only 2 people over the age of, 30 and then eventually 35. So we had like no other older adults and we felt very alone. But I guess recently a bishopric counselor can be an older married adult. So he has that now, where he has 1 YSA and 1 older married. But I find, and maybe this is the same for others or not, but I just find this calling very lonely. And it's more so even now. Sorry. I don't mean to be negative. It's just because we're in Southern California, we have 5 stakes of YSAs that are all together in this ward. But it's just, I feel like our social life has taken a huge hit, because it's like we're constantly going to, YSA activities, or, we're just constantly busy with, devotionals and service projects and institute and FHE. And so it's like, and if we don't go, we feel that we're letting them down. So if anybody has the idea about how to not feel lonely.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Marlene. And that's a big reason why we're doing this, because, like Mary says in the comments, that's feeling of loneliness has been overwhelming for her as well. So we're trying to figure out how to carve out a place in Zion Lab here so that there's less loneliness and you can relate to more people. So, hey, thanks for listening to this episode. We're actually going to cut it short a little bit. If you want to listen to the entirety of this conversation, head on over to the Leading Saints community. You can find the link in the show notes, and you can watch the extended cut there, and I think you'll benefit from it. So come join us over at the Leading Saints community.